Okay, around 15% of South African population are drug addicts, which means these are people who need drugs to get through the day. Now, I'm comparing this with the 2017 stats where 10% of the South African populations were drug addicts. But that's 10% of around 51 million people. And now it's 15% of around 65 million people. And we are talking nearly double, from 5 million to around 10 million people in less than 10 years. And I'm saying drugs are a problem on its own because of most of the crimes that we have, or the petty crimes, even the large crimes, are crime-based. Are drug-based, where addict needs to commit a crime, robbery, or housebreaking, stealing also, so that they can maintain the lifestyle of having these drugs. Some drug addicts go to the extent of stealing things from the same homes that they come from. They clear bank accounts first, then they get into their houses, and when they sold everything, they start stealing the cables in their houses and stuff like that so that they can make it through the day. One of the examples of these family dysfunctions or so, it's the cases that we might know in the media, where there was this guy, the Mamelodi cop, who held a family hostage, and it ended up after 12 hours killing the nephew and himself. We know the case of the young man who hacked his mother to death. We know the case of, or I've recently heard of a case of a man who stabbed his 6-year-old daughter 21 times. All of these issues, they have some form of drug impact on them. And with that huge problem that we have on drugs with the country, we move now to the next part that is becoming even more interesting, the issue of the Madlanga Commission that tells us about the big 5 drug cartels. And I'm saying there is 5 people or 5 organizations within the borders of the country that make sure that drugs will exist, and every South African must probably use these drugs so that they can become rich. And that's not the scariest part. The scariest part is within that big 5 are government employees or politicians who are kept in this net that makes sure that your children should get on drugs so that their children can have a better life. I don't know if it's making sense. I need to draw that picture so that we can get the depth of the problems that we have in the country. If drugs don't just keep you high, they alter your mind. They literally steal who you are and make an animal out of the user. If we have that picture in mind, and that the people who are actually selling these drugs or build market strategies to make sure that these drugs move to each and every South African that they can get their hands on. There's drugs on sweets now. The children go to school, they buy sweets innocently because of the any sweets, but those sweets are slowly making them to want to buy more of those sweets because of they are laced with drugs, and ultimately they will be drug users before they can even leave primary. Why? So that certain politicians and their family and their children can live a better life. This narrative is important for us to grasp because of when we realize that we are under siege, and this time not necessarily from people outside, but from our politicians and people inside the country opening doors to make sure that the country becomes decayed and completely destroyed so that people can make money and live a better life. You get people who come up with opinions. I'm not going to list names. And these people with opinions are probably educated, and their opinions are as well educated. And they say, oh, drugs in the country is such a big problem, and we don't need to literally solve it because we can't solve it. Why don't we just live with it? Legalize the drugs. Remember when I said drugs are mind alterings? They steal you completely and make an animal out of you. And I'm thinking, when you legalize drugs, surely there won't be 30 rands a packet anymore. There will be more, because now they have tax, they have drug tax and sin tax and all of these other tax. So a packet that you used to get for 30 bucks on a black market, now it should be going for nearly double the price. Who's going to pay 60 bucks if you can still go to the black market and buy it for 30 bucks? The other issue that we have in terms of these drugs is, so I can destabilize everyone's life, and the government says it's okay because of he doesn't see that he has a problem, and you just have to hang around with him until he does something bad. We can either arrest him or until he says, I think I need help, then we can say, great, now we can get you help. That system on its own, it's messed up because it doesn't allow us to have a remedy quick enough to help the situation out. And as though that is not bad enough, this is where my problem is. These drug dealers or sellers, or however we look at them, they don't come from somewhere under the ground or somewhere from the sky. They live in our communities. They sell these drugs in our communities. We actually know them. We know where they live. We know where they are. But we are not willing to deal with them. We can rather have an increased number of these animals being created year after year, children's lives being stolen by these drugs, converted to things that we don't understand, and that are very dangerous to ourselves and our neighbors. But we know who the sellers are. We live with them continuously. These big politicians don't come and sell those drugs in our communities. It's the people living in our communities that are selling them. As I close, I want to quote this. I'm a youth of the late 80s, 90s. I remember when in the early 90s, I think, I was in high school, I think. There was a guy in Meadowlands, I think he was called Makushe. His name was like Terror. Makushe was like, you mentioned that name. Actually, it was not even uttered. It was like, you can't know, I don't know how we perceived him. It's like, you can't even say the name. That guy is like so dangerous. And it took students in that time, the youth of that time, to hunt the guy, find him in the early hours of the morning. I remember I was going to school at some point and I saw some smoke in the center of the Middlelands big circle. That circle is still there today, well modified, but it's still there. And it took the community, it wasn't the police, at that time, to say enough is enough. The law has tried, and I'm not saying anything bad about the law enforcement agencies, but you come to a point where you say, the law is failing us. It's failing us on paper, where the policemen themselves in uniform don't know what to do. And some of the things, as we've learned from the past, we need to take power back to ourselves and say, we need to own up in the wrongs that are happening in our communities. And until we own up to those wrongs, some of these things, we will cry till the cows come home. I'm Rasemishi, and this is my opinion. What's yours?